Oh, guys, I got the blues. Do you feel this? This is very common for me after I see a great fight or a great fight card, that the next day I'm a little bit down. And as I reflect back at Madison Square Garden, I will be the first to state I have a short-term memory. Right? If I had $1 for every time I say, that's the greatest fighter ever, that's the greatest fight I've ever seen. But I don't know that I have a long history of saying that was the greatest fight card I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I've ever said that. I don't know. Do you guys ever talk that way, the whole card? We don't usually do that, right? We talk about, oh, this guy's the greatest, or he's the greatest in this weight class, or that was the greatest round. It was the greatest fight card I've ever seen. It was absolutely awesome. This dude started the show, this great big heavyweight. He danced on the way to the ring. He danced when he was in there. He cut a promo after. I don't like that kind of stuff. I never liked that kind of stuff. I loved it from him. If that guy was still in that cage dancing, I'm still sitting in my seat watching. I swear to goodness. I was disappointed when the dance ended. You got Ally Aquina and Bobby Green. Ally Aquina is the definition of a fighter, particularly a New York street kid fighter. And Bobby Green fits that same skill set, but Bobby Green's a great competitor as well. I mean, Bobby really doesn't get frustrated. If you were on Team Al for that fight, a lot of part of you was hoping that Bobby was down in the dumps because of the outcome of his last fight. It doesn't work that way. Bobby Green wipes it off. New task, new night. Colby versus Usman. A lot has been made about Colby Covington saying, I thought I won that fight. I thought I won it 3-2. And a lot of people have pushed back and said, now hold on just a second. You had a great contest, but you very clearly lost that fight. Let's address that real fast, because there are many parts within the rules and the intricacies of the rules that I don't think is understood. And this isn't just from the ABC. This is for each jurisdiction, of which in this country there are 50. And you do have to look at the finer rules, because round 2 could have been a 10-8 round. Usman put Colby down twice. That could have been a 10-8 round. It wasn't. It could have been. It was very open to have been a 10-8 round. And if you read the rules specifically for what a 10-8 is, specifically in New York, it most definitely could have been. Now, the only reason I bring that round to you is if you watch that fight and you determine Kamaru kicked Colby's ass worse than Colby kicked Kamaru's ass, you saw what I saw. But you can't discount what Colby said. Why? Well, because it's a 10-9. Each round is different. When Kamaru did to Colby what he did to Colby in the second round, none of the other rounds were that clear. They were all open for conversation, and the judges are going to have to mark it, and we're going to have to tally it up at the end of the night. So I only say that because if Colby felt like he won 3 rounds, he might fully admit what I'm saying. Yeah, hey, Kamaru got better of me than I got of him over the duration of 25 minutes, but that's not how we're going to decide who wins this fight. We're going to do it on a 10-9 must system. It's a totally different conversation, and it's not one that I have a strong opinion or I want to influence you guys with. I just got to remind you every now and then. We got to come back to this, particularly the hardcore fans. The hardcore fans that have been here from the beginning, they've watched every event that there's ever been on pay-per-view, are the first ones to forget that Pride and only Pride was judged as one long fight. You guys know what I'm talking about? For some of you newer fans, do you know what I mean when I talk about Pride, one long fight? So Pride had 3 rounds, a 5-minute round, a 5-minute round, and a 10-minute round. And I don't know how they broke it up. It might have been 10 first and 2 fights, but they had 3 rounds. However, if you were a judge, you were instructed to view it as one long fight. Not a first round, not a second round, not a third round. A guy can control a fight for 15 minutes in Pride. Not a lot happens, but he definitely wins 15 minutes of it. If he gets his ass beat for 3 minutes, he loses the fight. One long contest based on nothing more than damage. And I have to remind you of it because it's us hardcore fans that always forget that. It's us hardcore fans that always want it judged like the Pride fight, but we've never done that in the States, ever. Even in the early era. It was a one-time, one jurisdiction. We always want to carry it over. I remember the night that George St. Pierre fought Johnny Hendricks. And a lot of people were so upset because Johnny kicked George's ass worse than George kicked Johnny's. That's true. George barely won the rounds that he won, but he won 3 rounds. And the rounds that Johnny won, Johnny stomped him. Not enough for a 10-8, but enough for a 10-9. That was scored exactly in line with the rules. And I just feel as though sometimes we got to revisit that. Sometimes we do have to remind ourselves, because there was a case there by Colby to say, I won 3 rounds. And Colby wasn't calling foul ball. He was saying what he thought, and moreover, maybe what he hoped the judges were going to see. But he wasn't crying, I got a bad shake. And he also wasn't denying that the rounds that he lost, Usman did a very good job and did a lot of damage to him. Everybody's saying the same thing. But how we interpret that, or how we expect the judges to interpret it, that's where we start to get a little bit loose. It was a very fair scored evening. And I'll tell you one, I had one right where I got to look like a smart guy. I was with the ESPN folks. So when the fights end, we will generally turn and go, hey, who do you think won? Hey, how did you have that? We'll just kind of do some stuff. It's a piece of the conversation. After Rose's fight, I said split decision. Now, that's a big claim. That's like in football, when the guy's going for the extra point, he's gonna kick the field goal, and you say he's gonna miss it. If he does miss it after you say, everybody in the room's gonna go, how did you know that? How would you possibly think that? So when I called a split decision, I looked smart, but then I got pressed by Charlie, and Charlie said, favoring who? And I said Rose. Now, I never had time to finish that thought. Bruce is in the ring. Boom, I look like a smart guy. Split decision favors Rose. Let me tell you how I got there. I got there because Rose lost the second round. The fight I saw, Rose lost the second round, but she did enough. If you wanted to put the hometown job against Weili, you could. And what I was predicting is that 2 of the 3 judges did, but that there was no way all 3 saw that. They all saw that Rose lost that round, but she did enough. She did do enough if you wanted to make a case, and she did it in the last 10 seconds, which is an important thing. And we were fighting in America. This was my guess. This was my deduction. You'll never get anybody to admit that that's what they saw or that that's why they scored it that way, but this was my prediction, and it turned out to be right. So I'm only explaining to you where that comes from because the psychology of the official is relevant. Daniel Cormier talked about this weeks ago. I did not agree with Daniel, but Daniel still talked about this. Referee overseeing Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori. And Daniel was saying the way the ref called this is the way you would call it if you kept up with the media and you were specifically angry for one guy's behavior. That you would then judge him harshly because you read the headlines and you know what the last 3 days of his life have been. I don't agree with Daniel on that. That wasn't what I saw, but I do agree with Daniel's point. Daniel's point is not only fair, it's very sophisticated. It really is. And Daniel would know as well as anybody, and maybe better than most, what that's like to have favor with the officials, because he came through it with amateur wrestling, where you absolutely would see this, particularly in the Olympic Games. If one country comes out and wins 4 or 5 gold medals, they will make sure on the second day to stop that country. They're not going to let somebody just run through with all the medals. They're going to spread it around. What business is that of the officials? Fair adjudication, call it fair. A guy doesn't get a break because he's on the second day and his countrymen did so well on the first. You guys probably aren't going to like that now that I've just said it. It happens every time. It never misses. You'll have some officials that are so awful at what they do that they'll come out and tell the media that that's what they did and why they did it. You guys may recall the night that Kurt Angle became Olympic champion. Kurt Angle became Olympic champion because it was in the United States. That is why he won. The rules of wrestling at that time stated, if you were tied after overtime, the referees, there's 3 of them, they will huddle up and they will pick the winner. And Kurt went on this whole campaign tour as to why he won. I remember he would go out and tell. He was on Johnny Carson, or maybe it was the Jay Leno at that time, but he was telling Letterman and he was telling these late night hosts, I won because I had 6 attacks and he only had 4. Well, Kurt's making that up. First off, Kurt didn't have 6 attacks to 4, if you really want to go back to that match. But moreover, that's not what the officials are supposed to judge this on. It is not who had more attacks or who touched the legs more. Kurt was trying to make a case. And Kurt should have just said, the referees picked the winner. Certainly being in Atlanta didn't hurt me. He should have just told the truth. But when he started telling things that weren't true, by example, bringing in his 6 attacks to Jihadi's 4, that's not within the rules. Kurt just made that up. And so that's where the wrestlers are looking. Kurt, that's not what happened. And it's okay. We've had ones taken from us, and every now and then you get them back. But it happened because we were on American soil and you were taking on the Iranian. That's the truth. All right. So what Daniel's talking about is a real piece of psychology, whether it happens specifically in that match or not. And I was predicting it because that's what I thought I saw with Rose. I wanted, in all fairness, Rose to pick the fight. I picked Rose to win the fight. Rose lost 3 rounds and she won 2. The other side of that coin is the 2 rounds that Rose won, rounds 4 and 5. It was dominant and it was very clear. Rounds 1 through 3, they weren't as clear. They were close. They were competitive. Weili fought a very different fight than any of us thought she would fight. Look, something is with Rose that is in Weili's head. That's never going to go away. And you will have opponents like that. Some people call it a big brother syndrome, where little brother will never beat up big brother. It just won't. It's a psychological thing. Jon Jones can beat everybody in the world up. He says he can't beat up his brother Arthur. I mean, just by example. And Arthur says the same thing. I'll kick his ass. But I can tell when the Jones boys tell that story, they're not kidding. They move the coffee table out after Thanksgiving dinner, like a lot of families like to do. Arthur would beat him. I mean, I could just tell. I've had people do that to me. I have that same Kavorka over some other guys. Rose has it over Weili, and I'm not sure why. But Weili is a bull. Weili is a Mack truck that only goes one way, which is forward, and she destroys things. Weili's ground and pound is as good as anybody in the sport, not just in that division, in the sport. Weili is powerful. She's strong. She's short. She can get under opponents. She can use the underhook. She can play the fence game. She not only didn't do that with Rose, guys, she did not try. Weili backed away. Weili has never backed away from anybody. She backed away from Rose. Rose, in their first contest, got that kick that so many people falsely chalked up to a lucky kick. We know that for sure now. Same thing we tried to do to Rose when she got the jump on Joanna. Oh, you got lucky. Do it again. Well, turned out it wasn't just luck. But Rose was only able to find that kick because she managed distance so well. Rose managed distance, and so Weili couldn't get into her. And as I rewatched that fight, and I've rewatched the second one as well, I can't tell what Rose is doing that's scaring Weili. I just know it's there. The placement, as Rose moves her feet, fighters are looking at that. Where's her sharp little knees at? Where's her sharp little elbows coming from? Weili sees something that makes her very reserved. And I don't say that to put down Weili. This was actually meant to praise Weili. I think that Weili has one clear option, which is go up to 125 pounds. Weili is the only girl I've ever heard that I could recite back for you who has called out and said unpleasant things about Shevchenko. I've never heard that. Everybody likes Valentina, and if you don't like her, you respect her. And if you don't respect her, you're scared of her. But you're in one of those 3 categories, except Weili. And it came from out of nowhere. And Weili not only called her out, she called her out, and it was so confusing. She was a 125-pound champion. What problem would you possibly have with the bullet? Enjoy your division, let her do her thing. Women support women. Like, what's going on here? That many people, myself included, thought it was lost in translation. Something was said and the interpreter, it was written down, it was put out this way, and you put the comma in the wrong spot, you put a question mark instead of a period. We must be lost here. She came out and did it again. She came out and did it again, making it perfectly clear that she wants in the Bullet's wheelhouse. Now, that's an interesting match. And before you think you're going to just dismiss Weili was a champion of the world. The match that I saw, she should be champion of the world again right now. So you want to talk about her going up to 125 pounds? She could be as quick as 1 win away. 125 pounds, 1 win, boom, she's in there with the Bullet, and that's somebody who she said she wants to be in there with. Now, if she's scared of Rose, she can't fight scared if she takes on Valentina. I'm way ahead of myself here. I do understand that. I'm just sharing for you, if that match was to come, there would be a genuine excitement from me with one caveat. Is Weili going to go after her? Is she going to bring the skills that she has, which is to move forward like a bull, or is she going to be reserved because she left her skills in the back because she overthought something? That would be the big question. So I think we've got a number of very exciting things to look forward to.